This podcast is sponsored by the Center for International Business, Loyola University New Orleans College of Business.
Welcome to Gumbo of Opportunities, the podcast where we dive deep into the landscape of international business with a closer look at the state of Louisiana and New Orleans. We will hear stories, insights, and strategies of influential global players of the Bayou region in a pursuit to make the Bayou one of the most attractive areas for businesses. This is Gumbo of Opportunities.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gumbo of Opportunities podcast. I am your guest host, Farah Wells, Program Coordinator for the Center for International Business at Loyola University, New Orleans. I am joined by the wonderful Dr. Gustavo Barboza and Dr. Alessandro Braga, both faculty here at Loyola, as well as directors of the Center for International Business. And we are coming to provide an opportunity to discuss all things international business at Loyola, specifically how it benefits New Orleans, how we are in an international hub of a city, and what professionals as well as students can expect to know as far as international business. There's an opportunity to thrive in this section. So I would like to allow Dr. Gustavo Barboza to introduce himself.
Hello everyone, welcome to Gumbo of Opportunities. My name is Gustavo Barboza. I am the Director and Endowed Chair for the International Business here at Loyola University. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this conversation in which we are going to explore and understand a few very important topics and get to know what we do here in New Orleans. And so welcome to the podcast.
And hello everyone, I'm Alessandro Braga, adjunct faculty at the Loyola University and affiliated with the Center for International Business, and it's also my pleasure to welcome you all in this pathway that we will do together during the next episode, or during the following episodes of this podcast, Gumbo of Opportunities.
Yes, well, thank you both for being here. I am honored to guest host this first episode of the podcast, and I am excited to tell our audience what they can expect to learn about international business and what they can expect for the rest of the episodes. So let's just dive into it and ask a question that I can propose to Dr. Barboza is, what is a definition of international business? It's a common question that we get.
Thank you so much, Farah. This is a simple question with a very deep and complicated answer. And we have to, go all the way back to any trade relationships that you can observe among countries. That's international business. But of course, it has evolved significantly, and it's a very dynamic concept that truly started sometime in the late 1950s as countries move away from, having fixed currencies and start having negotiations using currencies that variate. And the opportunities that came up with companies that realized that not only you can sell to customers in a different location, but you can also get access to resources and thus engage in production activities in which firms might be placed in more than one location, headquarters, and then one or multiple subsidiaries. And so the field of international business has grown and has mutated into these complex array of relationships ranging from cultural differences, geographic distance, levels of economic distance, differences in levels of technology, and the big question of whether countries and companies converge across markets. And so when we talk about international business, it becomes that field of a study that is housed within business, that also brings a significant amount of economics within the understanding of it, and of course brings a lot of finance because of the connectivity of currencies via the US dollar that has remained the strongest and the trading currency by excellence after the end of World War II. And so international business then encompasses those activities in which a company has to be present and make decisions in at least two locations at the same time. And these decisions that happen then that could be sequential, typically they're sequential, meaning part of the process occurs in one location and the customer is in a different location. Now, that different location may be the home country where the company is housed, but it could be in reality any location in the world. So it is a complex web of interrelationships bringing more than one country, typically 3 or 4 countries at the same time, that has this incredibly fast speed, and it has increased faster with the advances of technology, in which now a decision that is made in one place has ripples of about the same amount or sometimes even enlarged in different markets.
Perfect. Thank you so much for laying that groundwork for us, and I think that will be super helpful for the audience to know and the listeners who are curious about that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Braga, what are some main topics or keywords that are relevant when discussing international business?
Thank you for this question. Actually, Dr. Barboza already introduced some of the main keywords that are connected to international business. And I agree absolutely with him regarding the definition, because sometimes, even if you look at textbook, if you look at even professional books, you find so many definitions of international business. Some of those are very, very generic. Others are, I guess, too much in detail that you kind of forget the real essence of international business. And in my opinion, that is related to the fact that it's a field, that is a discipline that is evolving so much, in particular, and is evolving so much, I would say, in the last 2-3 decades in particular. It is evolving also thanks to new waves of globalization that are occurring right now. Studies say that we are currently at the 4th wave of globalization, the wave in which we see digital goods as one of the main type of products exchanged through countries. The era of cybersecurity, of cryptocurrency, and so on. But despite that, if we need to wrap our head about what defines the content of this international business discipline, I would start by saying, well, first of all, we need to understand why doing business in the United States is different from doing business in any other place in the world. And why is that? Because we need to acknowledge the fact that we have a political economy which is different. Political economy that defines 3 major systems that are at play in a specific location, which are the political system, the economic system, and the legal system. So those 3 are I would say the starting point through which we can understand what it means for a company that, as Dr. Barboza said, might be locating subsidiaries or even just placing products and services in different countries at the same time. But it's not just that. It's not just about political systems or looking for understanding whether we move to a country that is focused on communal type of economy versus like a more individualistic economy or whatever. We are also have to take into account that moving throughout different places also means understanding that there are different cultural settings. Cultural setting that does not just influence the way people interact, but also, and extremely, it's extremely important to understand that influence how companies interact. In particular, if I think about the value chain by Porter, how companies can use their value chain to create an advantage, to create a competitive advantage over the market. Understanding these cultural settings, these different cultural settings, means understanding how to do business in different places in a different kind of way. Now we know that the world is even more interconnected, and this process, despite some scholars say that it can be in some way limited. I mean, if we think about the case of the US, we can think about when Donald Trump was president here, he tried in some way to pull back from globalization. You can do that exercising executive power, in some way also with legislative power. But we are dealing with a process that is basically unstoppable. So my idea is to just, that it's just important to acknowledge that and put in place all the necessary actions, starting from the strategy of international businesses, strategies that can lead us for example, foreign direct investment, which is another big topic connected to international business. International finance. If we're doing business in China, we also take into account that we need to exchange money and values in a different currency. And we, as international business, we have to take the risk that the currency might go up and down, and so we can lose or gain money as we go. So again, it's another key word, it's another topic that is very rooted in the idea of international business. And then in particular in the last year, I guess, we can also add other topics like global production, like very, very dispersed supply chains in which we have part of a production that, for example, is made in China, another part of a product that is made in either India or in the Southeastern Asia, and coordinating a dispersed supply chain is a big challenge for every international business, or in some cases, let's maybe reframe it better, for many multinational enterprises that operate on a global market.
It's a great keywords for anyone studying international business to know. And I appreciate the fact that you zoomed in a little bit more towards doing business in the United States. And Gustavo, I would love to allow you to zoom in even further, since we are coming from Loyola University, New Orleans. Why don't you tell the audience, where are you from, and when did you move to New Orleans, and how do you see New Orleans as an international hub?
Excellent, thank you so much for the opportunity. So yeah, I'm from Costa Rica, born and raised in Costa Rica. Have lived in the US for over 30 years now, give or take 30 years. And I joined Loyola in 2020. Again, I was blessed to have this position that allows to conduct research and teaching on this specific field of international business and related fields. We at New Orleans, we have this conundrum, right? New Orleans is historically a French-Spanish city that remains in many ways very European from the get-go. The food, gumbo, and all the sauces and the richness of the ingredients, but also its geographic location, and I want to emphasize on geography. Its geographic location positions New Orleans in a way as the farthest north Latin American city in the world. It's very Latin in many ways. It feels very Latin American, and it is a gateway, used to be the gateway to Latin America for the longest time. Historically, the port of New Orleans was the main entrance for fresh products from Latin America, bananas predominantly, on some key multinationals, Chiquita, Dole, and Standard Fruit Company, that unfortunately we lost that position due to the effects of Katrina in the year 2005, a disruptive event. There's the before and after Katrina, right? Like before and after COVID, those are game changers, also known as regime switch sort of events that required then the reposition of the city as still as the gateway in and out of the U.S. With Miami and Houston, of course, taking a significant role after that. But New Orleans, holds still the position as the largest seaport by tonnage. Of course, the mouth of the Mississippi brings grain and fuel down the river, and so we move a lot of bulk, a lot of containers. Containerization, another important word in international business. In a way, boxes, right, measured in 20 feet equivalent units or 40. But more importantly, New Orleans has the capability to remain as one of the main ports of entrance for international trade. And here the key part is international trade. Now, the city, of course, It needs to reinvent itself, and it has worked on reinventing itself on a basic port of entry into a much more digital and high-tech type of industry, and the efforts to develop that type of clusters, cluster being a group of firms that work together within the same industry and or firms from diverse industries that come together to supplement each other, provide for an excellent case study to understand this issue of international business. Now, in addition, New Orleans being this very unique city in the United States, in a way similar to New York and Chicago because of its uniqueness and its je ne sais quoi, as the French will say, has the possibility in attracting people to come. Everyone wants to come to New Orleans. Everybody wants to come and enjoy the food and enjoy the music and the culture of New Orleans, and that creates an advantage that most other places don't have. And so we are building on that. Part of the work that we do here, and because of its attractiveness, is bring speakers, world-renowned speakers throughout the world to come and give us lectures, engage with us. And we've been very, very fortunate to develop a network of colleagues that have become friends, upon which we are developing very interesting pieces of work that allows us to then present to the world. And Alessandro mentioned something very important: foreign direct investment as one of the key components on this process of how globalization happens. Now, why this becomes more timely, and I guess time and place matter as well. The other two dimensions, location, but time and place within international business. We have observed that there has been a significant shift in the way countries are interacting. Alessandro also mentioned the policies of the former president with a significant imposition of trade barriers against the Chinese products, in combination, conjunction with COVID, resulting in a tipping point in which the world starts rethinking whether we should be more global or we should be more regional. And I want to emphasize on the regionalism part of the question or the statement, because regionalism doesn't mean only the United States, but it means countries that are nearby the U.S. And because of that regionalism, and because most multinational firms do most of their business within their neighboring region, U.S., Mexico, Canada, European Union, Southeast Asia, the U.S., then in New Orleans specifically, has an advantage in the process that now is being called friendshoring and nearshoring. And we'll get to that later during the conversation. But back to your question, the importance of why New Orleans, right? Historically, this has been considered to be the best place to have a seaport. And because of natural disasters, we lost some of that. But the timing, I think, is essential and is right for the city to relaunch itself as the gateway in and out of the U.S. Recall that Miami, which is the main competitor, has a limitation on space. Miami has the port, works very well, it's beautiful, it's efficient, but they cannot make it any bigger. Whereas here we have the mouth of the river, and it just goes for over 30 miles long, that could be created as part of the seaport, and that has been one of the efforts the city is doing. I think an investment in the neighborhood of $6 billion to make this the first environmentally friendly seaport, and especially down towards the San Bernard parish, where most of the containers and trains go. So New Orleans has the infrastructure, has the river. Nobody else has the river, and so it's a matter of repositioning the city.
Thank you so much. That is a great discussion on how international business is relevant today, specifically in New Orleans, where we are. I want to bring it back to Dr. Braga, and this is the Gumbos of Opportunities podcast. And when there are opportunities, there are also potential challenges that companies can face. So what do you think are the biggest challenges companies can face when entering international markets?
Thank you for this interesting question, in the sense that apart from what I mentioned earlier, which also are the basic fundamentals element of international business, and what Dr. Barboza just explained, that, for example, applies to the case of New Orleans, there are a couple of things that comes to my mind when you can speak with a manager or with an entrepreneur facing the challenge of internationalization and whether to move, open a subsidiary in a specific place rather than others. And what they should take into account, what is the challenge of selecting the best location. Barboza made some examples pertaining to New Orleans, but in general, what are those, I would suggest those things that we should take into account. Of course, the type of markets that we are trying to penetrate. What are the features of the market? Do we have concentration? Do we have a market that is more dispersed? Do we have a higher concentration of competitors? Are they local competitors that might have a better knowledge of the local tastes, of local needs, customer needs? Are a mix of local and national, international competitors? Those are all things that, for start, you need to consider when deciding to enter a specific market. It's not just that. As I mentioned, also the tastes are important to verify. Once you decide, of course, based on the product or the service that you are proposing that is part of your core business. Tastes that, of course, can change over time and are greatly influenced by globalization. It would be imaginable. I mean, I'm talking about my past experience as an Italian citizen that used to live in Italy. When I was young, not that I'm old, but, well, I have few hairs now, but when I was young, it would be unimaginable in my country, in my, let's say, my city, which was a kind of a small city, to find, for example, a good, I don't know, Indian restaurant, to find a good American product, or to find a good textile product with materials coming from the Middle East or the Far Eastern Asia. Now we have this possibility. So does that mean that our tastes are changing? Of course they are changing. If we start Googling, and sometimes I ask students to do that, try to Google, there's an iconic image that comes to my mind of one man from an African tribe wearing all Nike outfit. I think it's an iconic image that I remember I used in different courses, but that too, just to show students how, of course, we keep in some way local tastes, but that are intertwined with influences that comes from abroad. That we cannot fight. We just need to take that into account. And so, acknowledging the tastes of a specific market is very relevant when deciding to penetrate or not. Let me get you a very, very stupid example. Like European cars that are sold in the US, they need to readapt the cup holders between the two front seats. Because here we have bigger cups from McDonald's, from whatever business you are getting a Slurpee or a Coke or whatever. And that is a classic example of, even if we have kind of a standard products, we always need to adapt to specific local needs. Not considering that means losing incredible business opportunities, especially today, in which also developing countries represent a huge opportunity for every international business, in particular because of trading barriers that are falling day by day, or at least they are reducing their power of trying to preserve national markets from international competitors. So, in spite of that, what are the big challenges that entrepreneurs and managers should think of? Well, I would say first of all, thinking about the presence of networks, thinking about the presence of really ecosystems, which put together, I would say, a bunch of actors, an undefined number of actors, and why we say today ecosystems and not maybe network anymore, of the specific network as definitions now is not as much widespread as it was like 10 years ago. It's because ecosystem really make us think of something that is changing every day. And as much the same in ecosystem in business means that today we might have actors dealing with a company, dealing with our customers, and tomorrow we may have a different group of actors, or new actors can add from one day to another. So going towards embracing this idea of ecosystem can help managers and entrepreneurs to set the right strategy for penetrating a specific market. Another thing that comes to my mind, of course, is related to leadership. Leadership is strictly connected to acknowledging the presence of different cultural settings. The best leader is the leader that is able to understand each individual follower, understand the follower in what the follower needs, and acknowledging that each follower is different from the others. That is the real value of being successful leaders. So I would say that those, in my opinion, are the main challenges that I would suggest managers and entrepreneurs dealing with international business should think of.
Yes, no, I think that's great, and you gave an amazing overview of how to overcome those challenges on both a company and government level. And I'm also happy that you mentioned your students that you have the opportunity to teach. And so I would love to hear, Dr. Barboza, you've been teaching international business for a handful of years now, so I think you know a thing or two of what students can expect to learn in the classroom. So I'd love to shift gears and hear more about what it means to teach international business and the students' perspective of when they want to enter this discipline in their academic careers.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to build up on what Ali just said regarding the challenges and the opportunities that international business bring. I want to work off an assumption, and the assumption is that a business needs to make some sort of profits to remain in business, right? I mean, the alternative is no profits, out of business. Even non-for-profit organizations have to have some positives so that they can remain in business. And so the objective of any firm, and I start by saying that because when we talk about international business, one myth that we observe is people tend to think this is only for multinationals, large, big companies that have thousands of workers. But the reality of it is the large majority of small and medium enterprises, known as SMEs, engage in activities that bring together more than one country, regardless of whether they are in one or more country or not. But the business is international to begin with. Small business represent, about 95% of all the revenue of a small business comes from exporting, which implies importing sometimes some materials, which also implies that the market tends to be outside the local market. So you work in the local market, you produce at a local market, but you sell mostly internationally. And so this opportunity, when you think about the students that we receive, we're blessed and have a very large representation of countries. Again, location matters, and it matters also that we are a Catholic school, Jesuit school in the south of the U.S. I like to call it the Catholic school of the South, and we're working on it. And because it is, and so we draw students currently. In my classroom, one of the things that I love to see is that if I don't pay attention, classes will start in Spanish. Because I have so many people that speak Spanish that I have to call orders. Say, guys, okay, let's move to English. And, but we have also students that come from Europe and some from Spain. And we have a cohort of students that just came from our dual program with the University of Loyola, Andalusia. Beautiful place, by the way. And we have students that come from France. We have students that are coming from Austria. I have students coming from Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, and so we have a very international representation, plus students from Central American countries, Nicaragua, Panama, Salvador, a lot of from Honduras, a few from Costa Rica, good representation of students from Ecuador, and every now and then students from Peru and Colombia as well. And so we have a very international, from the get-go, a very international perspective. So a student that comes here can have that. Topics that relate to doing business, both for large and small companies. Topics that relate from the overarching view of international management, and we cover the basics in every possible field of business. Courses on international marketing, a specific course on international finance. We have a specific course of multinational strategy. We have a course on import-export operations. That's one that students really like because it engages very, very quickly to typically family businesses that are in the importing, exporting, and they learn the ins and outs. And then we have a course that, for all that I know, in the research that I have done across schools, this is a class on global production networks. It is a brand new class, and I believe there's 3 or 4 schools in the US that teach this, and we are one of those. And it is a new perspective, not only on global value chains and global commodity chains, but more specifically on global production networks that soon, following in Alice's comment, it's going to be global production ecosystems in which we start engaging on the key benefits of international education and international business, which are the possibility of economies of scale, producing this more at a lower cost, economies of scope, producing very similar products that are adjust for the needs of specific markets. I like to use the example of McDonald's that has the typical McDonald's products, which would be the Big Mac and the French fries. And then the rest varies by country. In some places, the salad or the dressings is the most important. In other locations, say Milan, Italy, the Mac Cafe is a real coffee house with real espresso machines. Or if you go to Asia, the most selling product is not the Big Mac, it's not the French fries, but it's chicken wings, which doesn't sell here in the US. And so you adjust based on the locations, and that's economies of scope. Same idea used in multiple ways. Then, of course, you have the expansion of the markets. You can sell to more markets. From the perspective of the US, because we are in the US, even though this is a very large country with a large population, 335 million, give or take, the world population is 8 billion plus. And so we have, the largest market is outside the US. The largest amount of workers is outside the US. So that creates opportunities. And then, of course, the availability, and this is one of the things that we're moving more into it, and that is the transferability of the knowledge that is created elsewhere that could be absorbed and adapted if you have the right conditions for that to do. So we do that in terms of the teaching, the traction. We engage students in research papers. They have to do a research paper in every single class. At first they hate it, but that's what it is, but then they love it. We are very available for the students to interact with them. We try to also provide opportunities for study abroad programs. We do both long-term and short-term, and of course super long-term, semester, a year in dual programs, dual degree. You go to 2 schools, you get 2 degrees. So those are things that we have introduced since my arrival here at Loyola. That's on the teaching part, right? On the research part, we have a very active agenda. We are promoting the expansion in terms of faculty. We're very happy to have Alessandro here with us now. We're looking also at the opportunity to expand into an extra, postdoc. We have a large body of people that are working with us, you being one of them, of course, in the interaction with the other centers, which is essential for the work that we do, because again, we're a Catholic school, and so we work in conjunction with the Center for Ethics and Economic Justice, and also with the Center of Entrepreneurship. And this part has been essential in the advancement of the research that we've been doing, ranging from studying foreign direct investment in specific developing countries, doing work on emerging markets, but also doing work on growth models, international trade, and a series of papers that we have done also on developed economies. The case of Italy, we have studied extensively, and we have brought, as I said early on, a number of speakers, more to come, and that leads to the outreach. One of the things that we have been doing is the establishment of conferences Both here at the university, we were happy to host a few years back the QV Consortium for Undergrad International Business Educators in Loyola, a group of over 50 faculty from different universities, mainly US but also international. That was a resounding success. We were able to also, and we'll talk about this next topic in another podcast, more specifically hosted a conference in Costa Rica to study the issues of foreign direct investment, multinationals. We are also preparing on a different field that is just a field that I have a lot of personal interest in it, which is personal finance. We're working on a conference that you're very well aware of, bringing also Catholic schools to Loyola in partnership with Stanford University. So we've been able to do that. We have also received tremendous support from Notre Dame up in South Bend, Indiana, a school that is dear to my heart. One of my daughters studied there in a beautiful campus, a gorgeous school, and of course, the Catholic school around the world. And so all these have been elements of outreach that we have done, once again, using the location of New Orleans as the place to do it, or from the place to do it. I'll be remiss if I don't thank the donor supporters of my chair, Bill and Pam Ryan, for the Reynolds Church, because their generosity has been fundamental for all the work that we're doing and the extra work that is coming in the next cycle of years, if you will, that will allow us to continue expanding on both the outreach. It's very important. The research, we are aiming of increasing the number of publications, having more representation, and then of course growing the program, which we're already seeing some of those positive effects. My classes are maxed out, and that's very good. And we have growing classes. Alessandro is teaching one of those classes now, so also we have that. We have more course proposals coming up, and give the students opportunities to engage, opportunities for the students to do research sponsored by us. We've been very active in hiring TAs, and I think we're at present the largest center with more TAs working for us, and that's a sign of success. And so we're very happy with the work that we're doing.
All of that sounds wonderful, and it does not seem like the Center for International Business is boring, to say the least, or we are never bored around here. So all of that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, we play hard and we work hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a plethora of opportunities for undergraduates, graduates, faculty, postdoc, and then our partners at our other universities to engage with us, and that's really been at the forefront of our agenda. And so I would like to bring it back to Dr. Alessandro. Can you just give us, this is the first podcast episode that we're going to be putting out. Can you give our listeners an overview of what to expect on future episodes? And also for people who are wanting to learn more about international business, of course they can listen to the Gumbos of Opportunities podcast, but where are other places that people can learn about international business?
Sure, thank you, Farah. So let me start with the first question.
Yes.
What are we going to expect in the next episode? First of all, we need to set some basis discussing, Gustavo Barboza already introduced some of it, but we will dive deep much more in the next episode about what does it mean to do business in Louisiana, in southern Louisiana to be precise, and in New Orleans. We will dive deep in some features that makes New Orleans a great place to have business. And this content, I believe, actually we believe, can be beneficial both from students who, you never know, might find New Orleans a great place to live, like Gustavo said earlier, and say, why should I go back to my country? Why should I go back to my original place or my original town? Why shouldn't start a business here? We have also great programs, as Gustavo said. The real value of the College of Business is really this continuous and fruitful interaction between all the centers. We have great programs on the entrepreneurship side of the College of Business, supporting really ideas from young students and giving them the opportunities to grow here. So why not share some of the advantages of being here, since they are studying here? And so that would be our next episode. But in the following ones, let's say in the first season, what we're going to do is to set up episodes that have more of a business type of content, in which we will interview managers, business owners of successful businesses here in New Orleans. We also want to set up a special episode with our international guests, namely prominent professors in the topic of international business, in topics of economic development, in topic of regional development and innovation, to discuss with them some specific topics that are important, again, to both students and business professionals. That will be the fil rouge, just to say, using a French term,
yep.
right? That will be the fil rouge of our first season of Gumbo of Opportunities. We would also like to engage students in this podcast, making really this podcast a precious resources for students. Not just something that you just listen to once you're bored or once you're moving or commuting towards your place of work or your place of study, but really making it an important resources for them that can guide them, or at least give them some ideas on what to do, give them some ideas on which ring bell to ring once they are ready, once they are graduated and they are ready for work. Okay, so that to answer the first question. The second question, since as I said, as we all said, actually, international business is a discipline that is rapidly evolving. It's not enough to just study those topics that we discussed earlier. It's not enough to just have or gain a basic knowledge of what does it mean to do business abroad, engage in foreign direct investment, and so on. What we need to do is to stay current on what is happening around us. What does it mean? It means that should we every day look at the newspapers? Yes, we should look at newspapers, look for whatever news that we feel it can have an impact to us, for our business, for our field of study, for our major, right? And so what are the resources that can be best for doing this, for pursuing this activity? Well, if, and I'm hoping we have some listeners that are students here at Loyola University, first of all, I would suggest New York Times and Wall Street Journals, just because students have the possibility to have newsletters and to have access to basically all the articles published in these two prominent journals. News are an important source to keep us updated. It's not just news. What I suggest students is also to try to engage with the communities of practice. What are communities of practice? Are basically networks of professionals, usually targeting specific topics. Some of them can be more formal, in which you need a subscription, in which you need some sort of sign-in identification. Others are more informal, so you just like pop into the discussion, you just read what others have to say about a specific topic, and you can contribute. So in this sense, also LinkedIn, which is completely free, can be an interesting and a relevant community of practice, especially if we are able to use it properly, not just to navigate, not just to like use it like as a Google search. But if we really exploit LinkedIn, can be a very, very important resources. And I recommend students also to subscribe to specific newsletters, which are very, very easy to get into through LinkedIn. So I would say that those are the main resources that we can employ to stay updated on what is happening around us, which is, I would say, the 50% of what we should do if we want to be proficient, if we want to be on the upfront of the international business discipline.
That's great, and I think that is a great reminder to tell our audience to subscribe to this podcast for new episodes. And I would just like to thank both of you for taking the time to really allow our audience to get to know both of you. We'll continue to get to know you and spread what international business, the benefits are, and how it continues to evolve as a field, and the opportunities, of course, being the Gumbo of Opportunities podcast.
We want to thank you for the opportunity. It's indeed a joy to begin this podcast. We have a lot of topics that we want to cover, of course, more topics than time, but we want to do our best to push the envelope, to come up with ways to engage individuals, students, business people, policymakers, other faculty, and of course decision makers at the end, on the importance of why we need to continue studying, especially as we see that the world evolves. When we think we're going in one direction, it only takes the strike of a pen of a president to switch things around and then reconfigure the playing field, that is where we're making the decisions and what firms need to go forward to achieve what they need to achieve, which is provide a goods and service that people value and they can sell with a fair price and continue doing their business. And so this podcast aims at doing that, giving that opportunity to discuss relevant topics in a timely manner. Today, the challenges, and we're going to try to talk about some of those in the future sessions, podcasts, are moving away from fast globalization into more regionalism, contraction of expansion in certain directions, to look for partners that are no longer the lower cost, but are reliable, are friendly, and are safe, nearshoring and friendshoring. And so the decision no longer is just cost, but also, can I get my products? We have observed large disruptions in supply chains, large disruptions given to the political events that are happening. Unfortunately, the wars, invasion of Russia into Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East, the genocide that is happening in Sudan, that we hear little of, but it's happening. Political instability in Venezuela. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And each and every one of those topics affects the way businesses are done. That's international business. And so, we're looking forward to providing a place where we can discuss, engage in a professional fashion, and that the views can be expressed. We look for students to come and join us, other faculty, and of course business people. They can keep us in check that the theory that we talk about makes sense out in the business world. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you again. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe for future episodes. And if you are interested in learning more about the Center for International Business at Loyola University New Orleans, visit our website at cib.loino.edu. And to stay updated on our daily activities and what Dr. Gustavo Barboza and Dr. Alessandro Braga are doing day to day, connect with us on LinkedIn. Our page is Center for International Business, Loyola University New Orleans. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Gumbo of Opportunities, the podcast about international business of Southern Louisiana and New Orleans. Huge thanks to Farah, Oban, and all the staff involved for making this podcast possible. The music is New Orleans jazz guitar music by The Music Hive.